Hello, I want to introduce myself and thank you for investing in student learning and success in LISD, specifically to math. I'm Lindsay Ferguson, the Elementary Mathematics Administrator. I want to give you some brief information regarding the second 9 weeks CBA data in LISD. As we look at the data, please keep in mind that all CBAs are written with the standards in mind. We realize students mature over the course of the year, and some are still working to master these standards at this point. It's recommended that CBAs are used to inform your instruction, but not used as a grade. I also want to remind you that I'm referring to district data throughout this presentation. As you're analyzing your campus and/or class data, you have some great tools to support you. As you know, Eduphoria Aware and Forethought provide data, TEKS, and instructional supports. If you have access to the Click on TEKS, they are amazing resources to dig a little deeper into the student mastery expectations. In the following slides, I'm going to discuss the questions that represent the 3 highest percentage correct questions for the district. I want to assure you as a math department, we analyze this data and will utilize it during curriculum writing to provide further support for you and your students. For number 1, we were extremely successful at 86% correct. The correct answer is C. You can see at the top of the screen, I have put the TEK 4.2C, and that's the content standard. The process standard is also aligned at 4.1A, but right now we're going to look at that content standard, and I was extremely pleased. 86% is great success. Number 17 was also one of the top 3 most successful questions for the 4th grade at the district level at 83%, getting the response A as a correct response. Using the input-output table has been a new and struggle for students, and it's exciting to see that success come out in this question. Number 29 was also successful at 70%. Comparing the 2 fractions with different numerators and different denominators can be challenging for students, and they were able to do this with the content standard 4.3C as well as the process standard 4.1A with the real world situations. The next few slides are going to consist of the 5 most commonly missed questions on the assessment district-wide. Number 7 demonstrates or asks the students what the following area model represents which number sentence. It's important to note that in question number 7, the question marks indicate the unknowns for this question. That leaves B as the correct response. We only had 32% of our students in LISD in 4th grade answer the correct response B. Many students chose A as the correct answer. If A were correct, then B would also be a correct response, and neither A nor C are number sentences where the unknown is represented correctly. That leaves us with B being their correct response on number 7. Number 13 requires compatible numbers to find the best estimate, as that's noted in the question. Those are some key terms there that are listed, and the word difference. This would result in 55,000 and 12,000 being the two compatible numbers, as you know, and subtracting those leaves you with 43,000. You see the numbers are extremely close for the response A and the response D. For A, if the students chose to not use the compatible numbers as the problem states and just solve it using the standard subtraction algorithm and then make their estimate as the last step, they would get the answer A as the correct response. 27% of the students added, which is the response D, instead of doing the subtraction. Number 20 has 2 different things going on here. It's obviously a griddable. As you can see the grid on the right side, we only had 18% success as a district on question number 20. When you're looking at your campus data and analyzing it, or your class data, A is the percentage for the correct responses and B notes the percentage for the incorrect responses. The best way for you to see why the students missed this question is to look at their test and their answer documents. Ask yourself, did they miss the math or did they grid incorrectly? This will give you valuable information on the next steps for instruction. Seeing only the data printed out from Aware, it's hard to understand if it was the griddable or if it was actually the math for this question. But as we look at the math portion of it a little bit, we can see in the Tech 4.2b, it states decimals to the hundredths using expanded notation and numerals. In the problem, you see that it explicitly states the hundredths place with a value of 8 hundredths. And it asks, what is the largest number that Emily can create with those 4 numbers below? If students actually place the 8 in the hundredths place, like the problem tells them to do, you can see it's over on the griddable, they'll put the 8 there and mentally or physically mark out that 8 so they only have the 0, 8, and 6 as remaining options. Now, what is the largest number that Emily can create with out of the 0, the 8, and the 6? Students would then know to put the 0, the 6, and the 8, leaving 86.08 or 86 and 8 hundredths. For question number 25, it's obviously also a griddable. As before, looking at the student work is the best way to understand what misconceptions or reasons for getting this problem incorrect. We had 12% success on this as a district. The TEK says 4.2H, determine the corresponding decimal to the tenths or hundredths place of a specified point on the number line. You can see on this number line that 8 and 9 are already labeled. It's extremely important for students to note that the whole numbers 8 and 9, so there are not whole numbers in between those noted on this number line. A would represent 8.1, 8.2, 8.3, 8.4, 8.5, 8.6, 8.7, 8.8, and 8.9. Looking back at that 8.7 and that 8.8, students can figure out the middle of 8.7 and 8.5, what hits in the 8.7 and 8.8, what hits in the middle, that would be point C at 8.75. They could have gotten all of the math correct, all of their thinking on the number line and their representations correct, and they could have just answered their griddable incorrectly, so that's important for you to go back and look at as a teacher. For 4.3G, students are representing fractions and decimals to the tenths or hundredths as distances from 0 on a number line. Yet again, we see that number line again. We were 31% successful as a district getting H as the correct response for 3.5. Very similar to the last question, students need to note that 0 and 2 are marked. Mentally, they should be able to identify the 1 and the 3 on this number line. Now, to figure out B, filling in the gaps on their number line, they would see a hash mark to the right of B and know that that was 4. Halfway between 3 and 4 is obviously 3.5. So, some trends we see district-wide are obviously number lines and griddables as some of the common incorrect responses for the 4th grade CBA. Also the models. I want you to keep in mind the importance of teaching math through the concrete, representational, and abstract means for all grade levels. Research suggests that this approach enhances the math performance for students. When you're thinking about this approach, key things to remember: the concrete is the doing stage. They're using the concrete objects or manipulatives to model problems. Using manipulatives is so important for all of our grade levels, to start with that concrete before you lead them into the representational. The representational can be thought of as the semi-concrete level. Examples of this is drawing pictures, circles, dots. You can see in the example on the screen that they drew cubes. This is the seeing stage, where students are using those representations to model the problems. Then we move into the abstract portion. This can be thought of as the symbolic level. In this stage, students are using numbers, notation, and mathematical symbols to represent and model their problems and their understanding. We as an elementary math team are very eager to support you. Again, I'm Lindsay Ferguson, and you can see my email address there. Laura Vaughn is the East Zone Math Facilitator, and her email address is noted there. Felicia Curry is our Central Zone Math Facilitator, and Alex Kixmiller is our West Zone Math Facilitator. Also supporting our team at this point is Kathy McCool, and she is supporting the West Zone, and her email address is mccoolk@lisd.net. Please do not hesitate to reach out to us, and thank you for spending some time devoted to your kids.